Hello and welcome to the DesignCourse.com YouTube channel. I'm Gary Simon, and today we're going to be doing this. No, not clicking a button, but designing the button that I'm clicking here on this Android phone. And basically this involves stepping first into Adobe Photoshop to design the general button, and then we're going to use something called 9-patch to set up the button and specify the areas that will expand, and then step into Android Studio, which is an IDE for programming native Android apps and just making it a reality. So yeah, if you've never used Android Studio before, it's free. The information, everything you need to know is in the description here in the YouTube video, so go ahead and download it. Like I said, it's free. The installation can be a little bit difficult, but once you get to that point, you can go ahead and proceed with the tutorial. All right, so make sure you subscribe here and check out DesignCourse.com. All right, let's get started. All right, so we're going to go to File, New here in Adobe Photoshop, and I'm just going to call this Button Design, and the width I'm going to specify 1080 and the height 1920, and that happens to be the dimensions of my Galaxy S5. So you don't necessarily have to use this, but probably just a good idea to stick with what I'm doing so that your outcome is the same. Resolution 72 and RGB. Background contents, I'm leaving it transparent, though you can leave it at white, no big deal. Hit OK. And we're going to use the paint bucket tool just to give ourselves a background color here for layer 1. And clicking on the foreground will give us a color picker. And I'm going to go maybe right around here, which is the hex code CE. Very simple. All right. So you just left click. So now what we want to do is design our actual button container, and it's going to consist of several layers, but the outer layer, the biggest one, we're going to use a rounded rectangle. So you can see our document size is pretty big here at 50%. So the radius, I'm just using something real large, 200, and that way we'll have a completely rounded side, so left and right. So I'm going to start right around here, holding Alt while left clicking and dragging a button roughly around this size. And so imagine this is your phone screen that you're viewing everything around here, and this is going to be the button size, so a pretty decent sized button. All right, so now we need to give it a color. Right now it's the same color as our background, so we can't see it. I'm just going to rename this by double clicking the text, button background. We can rename this as well, BG. All right, double click the right side of the layers to bring up the layer styles, and this is where we want to specify our gradient overlay. And so doing that will give us this ugly sort of white to black gradient, and we're going to reverse it real quick. So you can just click this and that will reverse it. And let's click on the gradient editor area, and we'll double click on this this bottom color picker, and this will give us the option to change the color a little bit. We're going to make it the top one a little bit darker than the background. So that's B3, B3, B3. Hit OK. And the bottom one, we're also going to leave, maybe just slightly, not quite as white there, just somewhere. I think EF will work. Hit OK. Hit OK. We're not done yet, though. We need 2 more. So we're going to give it inner shadow, and we're going to change blend mode to normal, and we're going to change the size to 0, and then the distance 1, and then this over here we're going to put it 90. All right, so that changes it up and down, and then the opacity we're going to bring it down just to right around 8%, so you can still see just a faint darker line. And then we're going to do a drop shadow, so turn that on, blend mode normal. And it doesn't really matter. You could have left it where it was, but it's all about just experimenting. We want to change the color here to white. Size 0. It makes it hard. There's no feathering going on. Distance 1. And yeah, well, maybe 2. Opacity we want to bring up to 100%, so we can see just a faint edge right there. All right, so then hit OK, and we're going to do another rounded ellipse inside of it. So with it selected, we're just going to left click, hold Alt and drag out something right around here. It doesn't have to be centered perfectly yet. So we'll select the Move tool, use our arrow keys to get that aligned as best as we can. And if you need to, since there seems to be more height up here, we can use the Direct Selection tool right here and hit Control H. Actually, there you go. Just to get these points back in view. And you can use your arrow key to get these moved over appropriately. All right, so right around there seems about right. Okay, so now this is going to be the inside of our button. Now what we want to do for this is right click and copy the layer style of our initial button. We'll just call this one inner button. Right click and then paste the layer style. What that does, pastes everything we did so we don't have to redo it. But we're still going to make some changes. So double clicking on it, we're going to go to the gradient overlay. And real quick, I'm going to click on deselect reverse. That way it'll reverse the gradient direction. Click on gradient and we're going to alter it slightly here. This one, yeah, right around there, F2, F2, F2 will work. And hit OK. And the drop shadow, we're going to leave, we're going to deselect inner shadow. We don't need that. We're going to hit OK. And then what we're going to do is this. We're going to use with the layer selected, we're going to use the up arrow on our keyboard and just push it up like that so it's off-centered. We're going to right click, duplicate layer, hit OK. We're going to select the one from the bottom, the one that we originally duplicated, and use our down arrow key to shift it down a little bit. And what we're going to do with this one is get rid of the gradient overlay. So now you can see, we can see it. And we're going to double click on the color. Yeah, somewhere right around there will work. Then hit OK. And let's see here. I'm going to zoom up to see what's happening. Okay, so we're going to get rid of the drop shadow on this one. And for this drop shadow, we're going to double click it. And we're going to change it up a bit. So we're going to change the color. Right around there will be fine. We're going to put up the size a little bit and then also the distance. And the opacity. We just want it to look like this button is a 3D button that's being raised. This is the side of it, this darker portion, and then the light's coming from the top, so it's casting a shadow this way. So just like that, looks pretty good right there. So hit OK. All right, so now we're ready for the text. So we'll take our type tool, and whenever you're selecting on a shape layer, it might outline it, and then what happens is you'll see the circular thing around the cursor. You don't want that to happen, so hit Control H. Now you can just click in there. We'll just say click me. My font size is real small and plus the same color, so I'm going to change the color of the font to black. Control T, scale it up, and it's behind this layer, that's why we can't see it. Select the Move tool, hit apply, or hit the space. I'm just going to drag this to the top. And I might hit Control T to scale it up, holding Shift and Alt. Select Move tool and apply. All right. So right now, this is what the state of the button will look like when you're not clicking or pressing it, okay? So let me zoom out here a couple of times just so we could see it at a smaller size. So pretty simple. I may want to adjust this real quick. I'm not too happy about the gradient situation. So let me just bring that back. I think that's a little better. Make that darker. There you go. All right, so hit OK and OK. And so this is what the finished product looks like. Will look like when the no one's pressing the button, essentially. So now what we need to do is take everything, all those layers, with exception to the BG, hit Control G to group them. We'll just call this default. We're going to duplicate it, or you can hit right click and hit duplicate layer. I set up a shortcut for that. And hit OK. And we're going to get rid of, we're going to hide the default copy or the default layer, and rename the copy to pressed. So this is what's going to happen when somebody presses this. So zoom up here, or just hit Control-1 to go 100%. And we need to get rid of a couple layers. So to select them automatically, instead of having to go through them, you can get Control and left click. Or auto select layer, and then you could just click anything without hitting Control. So with that layer selected, we're going to hide it. But I think first, instead of hiding it, we're going to take this top portion and the click me layer by holding Shift. Use our down arrow key just to put it right on top of it. Now we can just delete that one beneath it. All right, so that's what it looks like when you're clicked, and we could probably also make another adjustment. So this top inner button copy layer, we could do an inner shadow. So bring that back. Opacity we can leave up. Distance turn up, and size turn up as well. All right, then take this down. And then gradient overlay, do I want to do that? Let me see here. Now again, I'm just kind of playing around here, trying to see what looks good and what doesn't. And there's no right or wrong here, really. So what we can do now with that, these two changes made, we can have both of these, and you can toggle on and off the visibility of the top layer. So this is what it looks like when it's not clicked. This is what it looks like when it's being pressed down. And I think that's pretty good for now. So as you can see, very simple. And so now there's a couple things that we need to do before we can really continue on. So we have click me, we have the text, everything's ready to go. What I want to do now is group those. So holding our Shift, we could select both of these, hit Control-G to group them. We'll call these original. Then we're going to duplicate that group. And so we have a copy. I'm going to hide this one. And now what we want to do what we want to do is not import this full-sized image. We actually need to make an adjustment in terms of the width of the button. All right, so what we'll do to do that, and this is the reason I saved an original so that we can make changes in the future. What we can do to make this easier is we're going to select this default and hit Control-E. And what that does is it merges. So it merges everything onto one single layer that you can't really adjust anymore. Same thing with pressed. So Control-E, and that does the same thing. Now what we want to do is take the rectangular marquee tool. We're going to come in just to the left of where the horizontal line begins, or where the curved portion ends. And just right around here. So coming in just a little bit right there. We're going to hit the delete key for the pressed layer, also for that layer. So we deleted them from both the pressed and the default state. We're going to do the same thing over here. I think I may add a little bit more by holding Shift and left clicking right around there. And then hit delete and moved over to the other one and hit delete as well. Okay, so now what we're going to do is take both of these, and with that selection there, select the move tool, hold Shift and left click and move it over just to where it's, you could use your arrow key as well. It exactly matches up. You don't want it to overlap and you don't want any space between. Then do the same thing with the other layer. Move down. Oops, real quick, let me hide the top layer. So we'll move this. There. And then the same thing over here. So we're bringing this back. Move this over. Okay. Hide that layer. Get a selection around this one for the default state. Hold Shift Use your arrow keys to get that lined up perfect. Oop, that's not lined up perfectly. 1 second. So that happens sometimes. Let's move that over. Ooh, we got an issue here. It looks like for some reason I may have cut off too much on there. So 1 second. All right, sorry about that. Being a pain in the ass, I think what I did was when I had the selection, I was over too far possibly. So we're gonna have to redo it. Sorry about that. So, okay, let's make sure we do this correctly. We can leave some space here to make sure everything's done correctly. All right, come over here. There. All right, real quickly go through this again. All right, that matches up. Hide this one. Move this over. Oops, make sure you select it on the right layer. That's good, and then bring this back. Move that over, holding shift, left clicking. Use your arrow. That's lined up, and then finally hide this one, select on default, move, shift, and there we go. There. All right, a lot better. So the reason we're doing this is because on different device viewport widths or whatever, you can have a situation where the screen width is only this size, for example, and you want it to be able to scale in, at a size that's less than this, the original down here, out here. So there we go. So now that the design is done, let me hide this real quick, or hide this one. Now that our design is done, what we want to do is go ahead and just save a PNG of just these two images for pressed and default. So with the pressed button selected, Control A to select all, Control C to copy, File New, hit OK, Control V to paste in. And then the same thing. Well, we're not going to worry about doing the other one yet. We're just going to work with this one specifically. All right, so now what we want to do is save this as a 24-bit PNG. So go to File, Save for Web, or just do what I did, Control Alt Shift in S, and that will bring this Save for Web dialog box up, and change this to PNG 24 with transparency enabled. Hit Save, create a new folder or put it wherever you want, and we'll call this button-pre, and then hit Enter. All right, so now we're going to get up Android Studio, the directory where you installed it, and you have to install Android Studio just for the part I'm about to show you. And this is where we're going to work with the 9 patch as it's called. So wherever you have Android Studio installed, and mind you, it's free, go download it. The link's in the description of this video. Once you download it and you note the download directory, go to SDK, Tools, and draw9patch.bat. Double click on that, and this will show up. Oops, got to leave that window open. And basically we need to drag onto the file that we just saved onto that area. So I'm going to get my off screen, I'm going to find that file real quick. And so that file's right here, the button-pre, drag it on there. All right, so now this is split up into 2 different windows. Let me zoom this out. So you have the Click Me button here with 1 pixel added to the top, left, right, and bottom from what we saved. And this program automatically does that. And then you have a preview right here, which shows the button in different states. Right now, it looks like not how it's supposed to be. So this is where we draw our lines. So I'm going to really make this large so we can see this here. So I'm going to zoom up down here. We're going to add lines, or different 1 pixel black lines. This is something by the way, that we can do entirely in Photoshop or another application like GIMP. But just bear with me with this. So I'm going to add a tiny line right there. Now notice when I added that little dot just by left clicking and dragging, it started to repeat that area over here. We're going to do the same thing over here as well. All right, just like that. And because we want our button to also, and we want it to be able to extend the width of the button without any distortion horizontally. We don't have to worry about it also being vertical. There's a way to do that, but it wouldn't work with our particular case because the edges are not up and down on the sides or all around. But for what we want, this will work perfect. We also have to do this as well here for the left side, the right, and the bottom. And so the bottom, it doesn't really matter too much. If you just left click all the way across, it's not going to affect too much of anything. And after you have these clicked or drawn out rather, you can just pull them and it makes it easier to go to make adjustments. I'm just going to do the same thing down to the right side all the way. Or did it? I don't think it added it, did it? 1 second. Yep, just like that. The very left side as well. So this is ultimately what we want right here. We can make this just 1 pixel, and each side, this is real important. I discovered this when I was messing around with it. The width of these top lines should both be the same width as each other. So you notice this one's like 1 pixel right here. This one looks like it's 2 pixels. So I'm going to zoom up a little bit. Get over here. There, now it's just 1 pixel, because if one's 1 or 2 pixel off and you turn your phone like landscape mode, you'll notice the click me won't be in the exact center. It might be offset by quite a noticeable portion, even if it's 1 or 2 pixels off. So if these are, as long as these are even, they should be good to go. They're both 1 pixel. All right, so now what we do, now that we're ready, we're going to go to hit File, Save 9 Patch, and then we'll call this, we'll just call this button not pressed. There we go. All right, so we can exit out of there, and we're going to go to File, Open, and we're going to open up button not pressed .9.png. You have to leave the .9 there in order for it to work when we bring it into Android Studio. So now we can see those tiny black 1 pixel dots right here and on the right and left, or right and bottom. What we want to do now is click on the default layer, and it's already, we have everything selected already. Hit Control C, then over here Control V, and it looks like it pasted it exactly where it needs to go. And we really don't want to get rid of this bottom layer just because it has the 9 patch lines already there. So as long as it basically, let me see here to make sure this is really even. Yeah, you can use your select on the layer 1, which is the one we just imported, and use your arrow keys to make sure it's not hiding any of the 9 patch and make sure it's exactly where the other one is. Then we can just save this, save for web, hit save, and we'll call this button. Actually, you know what? This is the button not pressed one. Oopsie, no problem. What I'll do is I'm going to rename this one temporarily to button not pressed 2. This one's going to be button not pressed. I'm going to hide this, don't save it, and then just go to File, Open them real quick. And this button not pressed 2, I'm going to rename to button pressed. There. All right, so we have button not pressed, the one that's not pressed, and then, ooh, did I put, oh yeah, then button pressed right here. So when you have both of those out there, hold Control to select both of them, left click, hit Control C to copy. Very important. So we'll come back and we'll paste that once we have Android Studio open. So once you have Android Studio loaded and installed, this is the area that you should see if you don't already have a project open. If you already had a project open, just go to File, New Project, and you'll be presented with this or this portion right here. So we're just going to call this Awesome Button. Hit Next. And we're going to leave this the same. Next. Leave it a blank activity. Next. Activity name. I'm just going to call it My Activity. Leave it there and hit Finished. And then it's going to take a little bit of time for it to build the project. So I'm just going to pause. And this is what you should see. All right, so if we click on Design, we could see what it looks like. Hello world, just left click and delete that. Now what we need to do is basically in our drawable XXHDPI folder, we're going to go ahead and hit Control V to paste that, and then hit OK when this copy comes up, that copy dialog. So we have our button pressed and then button not pressed graphics inside there. We're going to create a new folder by right clicking on Res, so a directory. We're going to call it drawable, and then we're going to put in a new file called a drawable resource file by right clicking it. File name, we'll just call this custom button. Hit enter. And then in here, we have to reference our files. So I just paused and I brought this website up. This is the official Android website for developers. And this is, it gives you all the information about buttons. All right, so the reason I brought it up is because we're going to copy and paste some code. And that's down here. And this specifies what you need to do to get a custom background, which is essentially what this tutorial is about. Right now, if you look up here, we have the XML, then the selector and the closing selector tag. You have the same thing right here. What we want to do is copy everything inside. So Control C to copy those three. And again, this is the web address, developer.android.com/guide/topics, blah, blah, blah. You can just pause and you can get there. Once you have that, just paste that in. And these parts are red because those files don't exist. These are references to the actual files that we uploaded. So what we want to do is change this. We have to note that it says state pressed is true. So that means this is going to be the button pressed. And our name is not that. Our name is button pressed like that. And we don't include the .9.png. We actually have to create another file, which I kind of forgot about this because there's also a focused option right here. And we can basically just create a duplicate file of the button not pressed. So the way we can do that is, let me get out this. So button not pressed, if we hit Control C and then Control V, it'll create a copy automatically. And so what I can do is just call this, you have to leave that .9 in there. We'll just call this button not pressed 2. So with button not pressed 2 copy, or selected, hit Control C, go back here, Control V, hit OK. I found that you can't reference the same file name up here. It gives you an issue with that. So anyhow, now we have a duplicate. Or at least I hope that's true. Otherwise, because that does seem irritating. You have to create an entire separate file. We'll see. Maybe someone can look up for me and comment in the YouTube section. Anyhow, so yeah, button not pressed 2, and then this is button not pressed. All right, now that we have that done, what we want to do is double click on my activity right here where it says under widgets button, put it in the middle, and then right now we're on design view. If we change the tab to text, we'll see we have our code for the layout. And right now we just have a single button, so that's all there is. So I'm going to give myself some room, put this on another line. We're going to add another attribute here called Android background equals @drawable. And this is a reference to the drawable custom button name for the XML file that we created. And then you can see that we have text that's overlaying that, so it's kind of hard to see. So button text says new button, just get rid of that. So now we can see it. Now it doesn't extend all the way. Well, we can go to design, and then over here with the button selected, for the layout width, we can change this to fill parent. And look at that. We can also switch the phone to landscape mode, and we can see it also works. All right, so once that's all ready and you have that all ready to go, and by the way, you can play around with the location of this, but just for this simple tutorial, I'm going to leave it right here in the center. And once you have that ready to go, you can go ahead and save the app first, and then Control S, and then you can hit run. Now I'm going to connect my phone to my computer because I'm not going to use an emulator. Okay, I paused and connected, so we're going to hit this run button, and it's going to come up. Ooh, no. I messed up. Oh, man. Invalid file name must contain only lowercase letters and digits. Why didn't I think of that? Yeah, because these are not lowercase. Well, it's no big deal. 1 second. If we select this right here and go to refactor, rename, we can just get rid of the capital P and the capital N and hit refactor. Such an amateur mistake. What am I doing? Refactor this and the rename. All right, and then finally this one as well. Refactor, rename. Refactor. Okay. All right, so custom button. It also refactored those. It changed that for us, so that's good. All right, so let's go back here. Yeah, we're gonna need to fix that. Actually, no, we're not. We can just close that out because I found that if you just hit play and let it run, this will pop up. Choose a running device. This is because I have my Galaxy S5 connected, and you could select that. Now, if you don't have an Android phone to connect, you can use an emulator, launch emulator. Now, if you don't have your emulator set up manually, you're gonna have to do a Google search or a YouTube search on how to add emulators to Android Studio. So not that big of a deal. Basically, it just runs something that looks like a phone on your computer, so you could preview it. So I choose a running device and then just hit OK. And what'll happen is it will take it a second, and then on your phone, it'll automatically load up, as seen here, the screen that we need. And so for some reason it's not showing it, but it's showing on my phone. So yeah, that basically is it in terms of how to take a custom button design in Photoshop, use what's called 9-patch to make it so that it's something that will automatically respond and basically respond, in a sense, making it responsive in terms of the portrait mode or landscape mode or the orientation of the device without any type of distortions. So 9-patch is real powerful in that regard, and you can use it for so many other things, not just for buttons. You can use it for containing elements and other things like that, or seek bars and progress bars. So yeah, that's something we're definitely going to get into more in the future as well. All right, so yeah, I just restarted the app, and I also hit build and clean project, and then restarted the app and brought this back, and this showed back up. So it's just some type of weird issue that occurred when we had to refactor the names. But yeah, so look out for more tutorials. I'm going to be getting more so into, oh, you know what? One thing I didn't do, I didn't change the background of that. So if you just take the eyedropper tool, left click on this, we'll get the color code of CE real quick. Over here, it shows background. Hit the hex code, paste in that color code, and that will give us a better preview of our image, or at least more consistent with how we designed it. And that's it. So yeah, definitely check out DesignCourse.com/premium, where I'm doing one-on-one design training, helping you become an awesome designer in all things, whether it be web design, logo design, identity design, or mobile app design. And there's also other goodies there. And as always, subscribe here on YouTube if you haven't yet. All right, talk to you later. Goodbye.